Welcome to Crucial Dialogue, hosted by Reverend Roger Gambrell and Reverend Clinton Thomas, where we discuss pivotal and controversial issues for those that need nurturing and clarity in the faith. Converse with us. Ask any question you want. Meet us online and join the dialogue. This is Crucial Dialogue.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Crucial Dialogue. I am your co-host, Reverend Clinton Thomas, and I will be hosting tonight along with my partner in the ministry, Reverend Roger Gambrell. Pastor Gambrell, how you doing today?
Brother Clinton. I'm good, man. Glad to be on today.
Good to have you again. And we also have with us Deacon Andy Jackson. Andy, how are you doing today?
Blessed, how's everybody? Good to be back
doing
on.
Fine. Thank you for asking. Yes, sir. And we also have our special guest from last time, Dr. Charles Willis. Dr. Willis, good to see you. Tell us how you're doing today.
Good afternoon. Doing well. Looking forward to another exciting conversation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue our discussion, our crucial dialogue from last time, being blunt about marijuana. And so we had such a great response from last time. We had so many questions that we wasn't able to answer, and we got cut off when the pot was just starting to boil. And so tonight we're going to continue our discussion about being blunt about marijuana. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's Pastor Gambrell, start us off tonight.
Yeah, but I'm going to talk. I have a question for Dr. Willis, and just to kind of open us up. Dr. Willis, and I'm going to ask this question a different way. It'll be two questions. The first question is,
sure,
how does marijuana affect brain function and decision making?
Good question.
Of course, there are going to be several factors: age, height, weight, male, female, things of that nature. But generally speaking, it's going to adversely affect decision making as well as brainwave activity.
Okay. Could you help me with that word adversely?
Oh, not necessarily positively. It's going to slow down the thinking process that has your reaction time is going to be adversely or negatively affected as well.
Okay. So in areas, in situations where we talk about driving under the influence, for instance,
sure.
We briefly discussed this, Mrs. Brother Jackson and I want to bring this question up. Why does marijuana fall into that category?
Let me use an analogy that people may be a bit more familiar with as far as alcohol. Again, marijuana and alcohol are not necessarily the same thing, but they both can act on certain receptors in the brain that's going to decrease your reaction time, your thinking time. For instance, if you're driving a vehicle or operating heavy machinery, if you will, your reaction time to think about doing something, to react to something, a deer or a dog or even a child crossing the road, is going to be significantly different and slower with alcohol as well as marijuana consumption. Of course, the caveat is dependent upon the age, the weight, the height. Let's use a little bit of common sense. I know some fellows that can drink half a case of beer and operate at a certain level. So that's going to depend upon a few other factors. But generally speaking, it's going to adversely affect your reaction time.
Now, I would question the correlation between alcohol and marijuana just because
not a correlation. Not a correlation. It's not a correlation.
Okay.
It's not a correlation.
Okay.
Correlation does not equal causation. I was just using it as a point of reference because people are generally speaking more familiar with inebriation from alcohol. But no, there's not a correlation. I didn't mean to imply that at all. No.
Because right now, currently, CBD is legal and is offered.
Let me go ahead and distinguish. There's there's a distinction between THC and CBD. Those are two different things. THC is the one that causes the impairment. CBD,
Okay.
not so much. So we're speaking to two different things. When Reverend
Okay.
Gambrell mentioned marijuana, I was looking at the active ingredient THC, tetrahydrocannabinoid, which is the one that causes the impairment. CBD, not so much. Those are two separate and distinct things.
But CBD has THC in it.
No, those are two separate things. Marijuana has THC as well as CBD, but maybe I'm not understanding. Generally speaking, most places it's pretty popular. 28 states it's been legalized, but there's a distinct difference between CBD and THC. Those are two separate and distinct things. We're talking about vodka and we're talking about cognac, hen dog, if you will, to use some vernacular. So they're both alcohols, but those are two separate things. But the CBD, not so much as far as impairment.
Okay. You know, when we talk about when I hear about and I was thinking about this since the last time we met,
Yes, sir,
how
Reverend Thomas.
how different drugs impair and affect the brain.
Right.
I don't have the studies to support what I'm about to say, but I've been told that the human brain is fully developed around age 25, somewhere in that area.
Give or take.
So
Hmm.
I'm just wondering if we have young people, teenagers, that are trying marijuana alongside of since it's a gateway drug and any other drug that they may explore. I wonder if that's showing up in the school system. You know, let's talk about that for a minute. Pastor Gambrell, you teach high school. I just wonder if some of the impairment or some of the damage that could be done from marijuana and other drugs. I wonder how it's affecting our children, and I wonder how it's showing up in the school system, and on their first job they may get, just different things like that. That's just something I'd like to talk about for just a minute. Pastor
Well,
Gambrell,
quickly,
do you talk about that? Go
well, I
ahead,
can
sir.
say this. I can say this. Pretty much, we don't have kids for the most part in the school environment dealing with that particular issue, but we do
Okay.
uh, from time to time have students that are smoking on campus. They get, I don't know why they're doing that, but they can do it, but they can do it at their house. But as
Uh huh.
kids are exploring, some kids are trying it, and some kids, what I just in talking to kids, are dealing with different issues, and
Uh
this is
huh.
their way of coping. This is their coping mechanism.
Okay.
You know, so from that, I can only speak from that stance, but I can say this: well, number one, it's illegal on any school campus.
Okay.
If you're caught with it, you're going to get expelled.
I hope our teenagers can
So
hear that.
yeah, you understand. If you're caught with
Absolutely.
marijuana on the campus, you're going to get expelled. It's considered a controlled
Absolutely.
substance. It depending upon the
Schedule
age of the
one.
student, it become a felony. They will call it. They will call Fort Bend County, and you will get a case.
Okay.
So
Uh, uh,
every young person understand that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
It's
let me share
considered a
this
Schedule One narcotic
schedule.
Yeah,
to that
What
yeah,
particular
brother.
point.
you say? Schedule one, Dr. Willis. Tell us what that means. Schedule one, narcotic.
It's considered no medicinal benefit is the probably the simplest way to indicate Schedule One. Allow me to say a
Okay.
caveat. There's a difference between legal and illegal, and like Reverend Gambrell said, it's definitely illegal. I'm speaking specifically to the medicinal aspects of it.
Hmm.
Okay.
Apartheid was legal. Slavery was legal. There are a lot of things that were legal that's not necessarily right. So again, I'm
Okay.
speaking specifically from a clinical
Yeah.
aspect. I will reiterate, it's definitely illegal, specifically to the medicinal benefits of it. If I speak to the reason why it's considered a Schedule One, that will probably take up most of the pot. I will kind of restrict my conversation to the medicinal benefits of it. But right now, it's definitely considered a Schedule One narcotic, which is the quote worst of the narcotics. Absolutely.
So
Okay.
so brother,
And just
you mentioned. Go ahead.
I
Go
just
ahead. I'm
want to
sorry.
share this real quick to our listeners.
Yes,
Those
sir.
of you that are out there in YouTube land and Facebook world, or however you're listening to us, Feel free to send in your questions or your comments.
Please,
We'd
yes.
like to hear from you. We're having a dialogue, but we want you to be included. And remember, keep it clean. You don't have to be mean, but share your thoughts and share your questions with us. We'd love to hear from you on tonight. All right, go ahead, PG.
Now, I was gonna say, Brother Andy, we had a brief discussion last week about legalization and what's really behind all of this. I want to just
Uh-huh.
take a moment and you kind of bring that back alive because I've kind of thought through this thing because what I don't want to do is I don't want to demonize people for something that they might be doing to help themselves, but also I want to make sure that I understand exactly what we're talking about so I can properly educate people and talk to people and relate to people in this area.
Okay.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
I appreciate you throwing me that alley hoop. As we talk about the school system and whether or not you can see that correlate or see that play out, it goes back to the illegal and legal thing because realistically, you won't be able to go through a school and tell who's smoking and who's not unless they literally just got through smoking and you smell it on them. Growing up, I was able to um, let's say partake in some extracurricular
Hey,
activities
be
and
careful with be careful with
yeah
your
but
words, Deacon. Go ahead.
I mean we're talking about the school, so I'm trying to give an example of while in school, and you'd be surprised who was in that school that was smoking. So
Wow.
20 years ago, everything, it was all illegal. It wasn't even a thought of becoming legal. And so
Uh-huh.
That's
now
right.
you fast forward to now where it's 28 states and it's legal, and it's probably a lot easier to get in the states that it is still illegal. I don't think that, let me put it this way. I think that the illegalization and the demonization of marijuana is the reason why we're having this conversation. It's not
Makes
about
sense.
whether or not it's a medical benefit of it or not, or whether or not somebody's able to use it responsibly and continue their life as if you wouldn't even know. I mean, you'd be surprised who you know that you don't know smoke. And
Mhm.
because it is illegal, that's another level of stress that somebody that may be self-medicating is having to deal with because um, I think the medical validation of the benefits of marijuana, um, I think I think the conversation should be changing now, and
Okay.
because we look at it as if it's something bad, you know, I would, let's go spiritual. God created marijuana, and I think God created marijuana to do what marijuana does. So, are we the ones to decide whether or not God is, he made a mistake, or did man just call it illegal so that it could be a different agenda attached to that drug that allowed us to get to where we at now, where you know 40% of the black men incarcerated, got some kind of form of marijuana conviction.
Okay.
Now, what do
Wow.
you
So
mean
that's
by he said God
go ahead.
created marijuana to do what marijuana does?
Maybe I could speak to
I'm
that
kind of
for a
Exactly.
bit.
stuck right there.
Yeah, maybe I can speak to that.
Go
The
ahead.
way that I interpreted what Deacon Jackson was saying, allow me to use another analogy with cocaine. We understand where cocaine comes from and how it was
Uh huh.
synthesized several decades ago. But keep in mind that the cocoa leaf was used for centuries in countries. Active ingredient was synthesized and it became so potent, if you will. It was used primarily for energy and such. The way that I interpreted Deacon Jackson to say that, looking specifically at this country, America, we understand that the Native Americans, the Indians, if you will, was using it for centuries. I believe they call it the pipe. I think we're all grown enough to
Uh-huh.
understand that the ingredient they were using in the peace pipe was not necessarily tobacco, so to
Peace.
speak. But again, we would have to look at this particular country and how it was founded upon the genocide of Native Americans and the enslavement of the African population. That may not be the direction for this particular conversation, looking at
Okay.
some of the questions from last week. But speaking of what Dr. Jackson said, the demonization of that was purposeful and intentional by this country, by the government of this country. You'll notice now that we, meaning the government of this country, is able to tax that and to regulate that. You're going to be amazed at how the conversation that we're having right now, if we have the same conversation a year from now, it's going to be completely different. All of this that I'm saying, the caveat is illegal. I do not recommend that. I don't encourage that. The conversation that I'm going to have a year from now is going to be completely different than what I'm saying now, as far as it's a Schedule 1 drug. It's illegal. I do not recommend that, which is why I was restricting it specifically to the medicinal benefits of it. But watch when the laws change, the conversation is going to change dramatically regarding the actual benefit of both CBD and THC that we alluded to earlier.
I have a question for Brother Jackson.
Yes, sir. I'm listening.
Brother Jackson. So just from our conversation, I think that this is a real good conversation for helping us hash out a possible way to explain our position on this.
Okay.
Brother Jackson, would you see marijuana in the same category with smoking cigarettes?
No,
Why?
because tobacco is a process. It's processed before it's intaked.
Okay.
So
No,
it
no,
goes.
I'm not talking about whether it's sin or not. I'm just, just
No, I'm
if you
saying
smoke a
that,
cigarette, some
that
people-
you don't just grab a tobacco bush and roll it up and smoke it. It's gotta go through a process in order for you to get it to that smoking part. And marijuana, you can go grab it off the bush.
According to some of my friends from Honduras, they grow it, they lay it out to dry, and they roll it and they smoke it. They said no chemicals, just fire. so, so.
Well, if
that's what,
they doing it
that's
that
what
way,
they
then
tell me.
yeah, I would say in a recreational sense that yeah, then it is.
Pastor Gambriel,
Oh,
if
we
you can
lost
hear us, we lost your sound, Pastor Gambriel. If you can hear us, we can't hear you. I see. I saw. To my producer, can you put that question that was up there previously while we get Pastor Gambriel back online with the audio? The previous question. Where's the comment? It says, God did not create marijuana for us to not be in our right state of mind. We should always be in our right state of mind at all times. And there are several scriptures
Am I
that
back?
we got you. Thank you, sir. There are several scriptures that talk about being sober-minded, self-control, having the mind of Christ. And so we do have to be careful. Now I'm speaking from a spiritual standpoint as one that is a disciple of Jesus Christ. We have to be careful when we look at what marijuana can actually, what state of mind it can actually put us in. I heard a gentleman one time say the bird will fly over your head, but you're not to allow him to sit there and make a nest, because that's going to be problematic at some point. And so from a Christian standpoint, we have to be mindful, especially when it comes to if we cause a brother or sister to stumble because we say, hey, God created marijuana so we can smoke it. And then some have even said, I was talking to a friend the other day and they said, well, marijuana's not in the Bible. And I told them, I said, well, you're right. I said, but Houston, Texas isn't in the Bible. So we can't use that analogy. So we have to be careful, especially from a spiritual standpoint, when we partake of something that's going to alter our state of mind, even if it makes you relax. But most the people that I know that smoked marijuana in the past, they didn't take it. They didn't smoke it just to relax. They smoked it to take it to the next level. So just wanted to put that in there to make sure we go with the statement with the statement that our viewer put up on the screen.
Can I answer the question the way that I would I guess put it when I say that marijuana does what God put it on here to do. Um,
Uh-huh.
I think if we looked at it like if it was a herb, and so now some people cook with it, so I know a lot of the stigma is based off of the smoking part, but I mean, you could break marijuana down just like sage or rosemary or any other herb that's out there and intake it. Now, as far as the mindset, I was told once you are what you eat. And
No, we're
so
talking
I
about
think that,
smoking now. No, we're not talking
yeah,
about eating. We're talking about smoking. So let's
no,
stay
we're
on the
talking
smoking
about
thing.
marijuana. We're
Yeah,
talking about
but we're talking
marijuana.
about smoking. We talking when we say
Yeah, but
being blunt, we talking about rolling up something, licking that joker and
yeah,
putting some fire to it.
but
So we're talking about
but
being
I was
blunt about marijuana, not
but
actually eating it.
yeah, so I just wanted to put out that there's more than one way to consume the herb.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
So
but
brother
but
Andy, you,
when it comes
yeah.
to the mind, I think that if you are in a toxic environment and you consume marijuana, you're gonna be probably a toxic person. I think that if you are in the college and got a exam and you got a cram and you trying to find a way to focus, I don't think that when you smoke you're gonna be mad or angry or I think that it kind of makes you who what did they say alcohol? It's just the truth come out, you know. So
Yeah.
so I don't think
Yeah.
that
I'm gonna throw this in there. I'm gonna throw this in. Proverbs 6:27-28, and this is a reference for our listeners. The
Okay.
scripture says this. It says, "You cannot take fire into your bosom and not be affected." So, to
Okay.
some degree, the concern I have is I want to balance this concern. I hear Brother Jackson's explanations with the fact it can be used as a herb. My concern is the effect it has. And what I'm hearing is that there are some great uses for marijuana medicinally, possibly as a herb if it may help people medically. But what we want to be careful with marijuana is when we get into the recreational side, where it may cause us to make some decisions because Dr. Willis talked about it may change our thought and ability to react. We have to take into consideration that part because scripture also teaches that the reason we have wisdom is that wisdom will guard us. So we do need to understand what marijuana does so that we can make the right decisions regarding marijuana and not put ourselves in
Absolutely.
situations where we're getting stopped by a cop because we understand what the state law is. Or we're on the job and we're taking a
Sure.
urine test and we're losing our job and getting kicked
Hmm.
out. Again, I want to bring that balance to what you said, Brother Deacon Andy, because we don't want to demonize people who have a good intention. But at
Right.
the same time, we want to balance it with we don't want our young people smoking and developing a drug habit because we said it's okay to smoke. Because for some people who start smoking marijuana, it leads into other drugs. Do we agree?
Hmm.
Now, I hope nobody disagrees
I
with
don't
me
I don't
that some
I
people,
don't agree
well,
with
that's not
that.
always true. I agree. Now, it doesn't always happen.
I don't agree with that.
But
Because
would
I
you?
think
Would
that
you?
Okay.
I think the only reason why we're saying that is because it was put in the classification with drugs that it had nothing to do with.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
I think that that's why we say that it would lead to other drugs is because it was put in the classification of drugs that it had nothing to do with.
So do you think? But you saying it because it said or because it actually happened? So it never happens?
No, I'm
Or you
saying that
are you saying
that
that? Are you saying there's no
what
link at all? There's no link at all.
I'm saying that the link to marijuana and harder drugs is our criminal justice system. That's what I'm
Okay.
saying. Is that
Okay.
once you get caught up in that criminal justice system, then time's gonna get hard. Now, when times get hard, you might go to some harder drugs, but that ain't got nothing to do with. I know people that have smoked marijuana all their life and have never touched another narcotic.
Yeah, excellent point. What I'm
Dr.
hearing
Wilson.
is, correlation does not necessarily imply causation. It's probably a succinct way of indicating Brother Jackson is saying. I understand the point that Reverend Gambrell is mentioning as well. However, correlation does not necessarily imply causation.
Okay. Yeah. And
So that
that's
means,
the discussion
but so we
need to
clear,
have.
just so we clear, Doc, you said that marijuana is not a gateway drug, right?
No, I said not necessarily relation,
Okay,
just because, like you
okay,
said,
okay.
they're
Yeah.
classified in the same thing. Not necessarily. That's like saying you like ice cream, I like ice cream. It's a
Uh-huh.
hot day and someone got murdered. Well, just because I like ice cream, you like ice cream, that doesn't necessarily, that correlation between you liking ice cream and myself liking ice cream doesn't necessarily imply that we murdered 15 people yesterday just because 15 people got murdered yesterday. So to your particular point,
Exactly.
no, correlation does not necessarily imply causation in regards to that. Again, to your point, Deacon Jackson, just because they're classified in the same category, you're absolutely right. That doesn't necessarily mean that using one will automatically, notice I'm very careful
Automatically.
with what I'm saying,
Yeah,
automatically
Uh-huh.
lead to
automatically.
the other. Because as Reverend Gambrell said, there may possibly be a reason why, if you start with marijuana, you may
Yeah.
possibly do something else. But simply speaking, no, correlation does not
That can happen
necessarily imply
in any
causation at all.
environment. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna say this: there's a passage. Hopefully, Brother Bouchard can bring this passage up. Romans 13:11,
Yes, sir.
Romans 13:14. It's a verse. I want to show this passage. I think this passage is apropos for this discussion, and this is really for a lot of our youth that are watching, and for a lot of believers and disciples who may be watching. Romans 13:14, and he may not be able to pull it up, but I'm gonna. Boy, I should have had to turn to it, but I'm gonna read it. There it is. Okay.
Yeah, he got
And it
it on the
basically
screen.
says,
Thank you.
yeah, it says, put on the Lord Jesus Christ. And what he's really meant, that's a reference to walking in the Spirit, walking in obedience to Christ. Put on Christ and make no provision for the flesh. So the challenge that we have is that we have to be careful of anything we involve ourselves with. And hopefully
Absolutely.
Deacon Jackson and I, we can find common ground here. That we have to be careful of anything that we are engaging in, because anything can possibly can bring some adverse effects to us.
Right.
Alcohol, marijuana, anything, when you misuse it, mishandle it in a way in a way that's not going to be helpful. He says, make no provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. So the goal is we don't want to find ourselves in a situation. Thank you for the passage. We don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we're making bad decisions because our mind is not where it needs to be. My concern for this argument is, again, especially for young people. You talked about this last week, Dr. Willis. I'm not going to, when we talk about young people, just to where people's minds are. I would not push people toward marijuana.
No, not at
that
all.
would be my position.
No.
Yeah, it'd be my position.
Sure.
But at the same time, I'm going to say
Not
the
legal.
same thing about alcohol. Yeah, but
Sure.
some people drink.
Well,
I don't want those.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask a question?
Yes,
then,
sir.
Brother Gambrell? Would you,
Let's talk.
if you had a student that was suffering from depression and they went to the doctor and the doctor gave them some medication, would you advise them to take that medication?
I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to speak to that. If the doctor,
Lost the sound.
Sound, Bruce. Pastor Gambrell, if you can hear us,
Sound.
we can't hear you. And that's why we need this platform to have this kind of dialogue, because these things are, as the title says, crucial for somebody. Somebody may be at a fork in the road, and so they need to hear.
give me back.
We got
Right.
you. They need
Yeah,
to be able to
good.
hear
All right.
from. They need to be able to hear from different people, because we don't know how far across the globe that this dialogue is going to reach, and that's why it's crucial that we have these kinds of conversations. And so, man, this is just great. All right, let's finish your thought, Pastor Gambrell.
I was simply saying, I thought Eddie's question was good.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to tell a young person not to follow doctor's orders. If I don't understand the medication, I can't speak to it.
Okay.
Like that's why we brought Dr. Willis on, because We're not experts with marijuana. He had that information, and I think Andy's points have been good. But depending upon what it is, as long as it's not, I guess, would be hurtful and harmful to the person, I would say you can follow a doctor. But I wouldn't be an expert to be able to speak to it.
Okay.
But what I was
And what's
just
that
trying to, I
particular?
was just trying to say that. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dr. Willis.
No, I was just going to speak to what Reverend Gambrell said. For pretty much any medication, there's going to be pros and cons to any medication you take. No
Uh-huh.
medication, even aspirin, even Tylenol, no medication you take is not going to come with some type of adverse effect. So for any type of medication you take, there are going to be some pros and cons. Generally speaking, we want the pros to outweigh the cons for any
Sure.
medication that a doctor
Sure.
prescribes and that I, as a pharmacist, would actually feel. I would hope that the pros outweigh the cons. And allow me to
Okay.
say, I'm not in any way advocating for anyone to do anything illegal. And at no point am I trying to advocate that a teenager should willfully and purposefully indulge in smoking marijuana. Let me clarify that point.
PSA.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Well, hey, look, guys, this has been a very good dialogue. Let's go ahead and sum it up. We'll go around the room real quick. Deacon Jackson, sum up today's crucial dialogue.
Well, I would like to say that appreciate y'all having me on again. If I could sum it up, I think the crucial conversation about marijuana is that had it not been deemed illegal, we would probably be looking at it as just a regular prescription drug at this point, and all of the false pretenses that have been created throughout the process of from when it was legal to now that it's illegal. That our perception, like Doc said, next year or the year after that, we'll be having this
Mhm.
conversation a little bit different.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Deacon Jackson. Dr. Willis, closing remarks, if I could say it like that.
I would definitely advocate that you speak with your healthcare provider before you do anything, whether it's prescribed or non-prescribed, whether it's marijuana, any type of substance that you're using to better yourself. And that includes alcohol, which is legal, but I would be very careful with that. That includes food, which is legal, but especially in our community, and
Mhm.
this is kind of personal pet peeve. We know that two-thirds of the population is considered clinically obese or over, and a lot of people use food to self-medicate. So I would encourage people to be very careful. Legal, illegal. Again, I'm not advocating anyone to do anything illegal, but I would also encourage us to be very careful about a lot of legal substances, tobacco, alcohol, food that are
Right.
adversely
Right.
affecting the health, most specifically in what I consider the African American, the Black community.
All right. Man, boy, you know what? Our listeners, man, I appreciate you all, but y'all are sending in your questions toward the end of the podcast. I need y'all to be ready and send them in on the front end. Good dialogue. Pastor Gambrell, sum this crucial dialogue up for us, please, sir.
I really enjoyed the dialogue with Deacon Jackson and Dr. Willis and you, Brother Thomas. It's been a great discussion because it's really helped me rethink the way in which I look at these things.
Uh huh.
I've been emphasizing. I want to understand how to talk to people and how to see people in a much more loving way, in a much more understanding
Amen.
way, so we can really relate and walk with people. Um, there are different ways we can look at things based upon there are different ways we look at things based upon the information that's been given us. That's what I've learned from Brother Jackson. That we have looked at marijuana based upon how the public and how the government has tailored the conversation, and we've not done the research to be able to look at it objectively, which I appreciate that discussion, that combination, that conversation on. And so I'm really looking forward to doing my own personal research, talking to people, learning, and so we can better relate to people with these issues. So I enjoyed the dialogue. Thank you guys so much.
Well, hey, folks, it's been great. I want to say thank you to Deacon Jackson for being transparent and blunt about marijuana. Thank you, Dr. Charles Willis, for 2 weeks of crucial dialogue, being blunt
Sure.
about marijuana. And as always, to my partner in crime, my partner in the ministry, my co-laborer in the faith, Deacon Dr. Roger Gambrell, it's always a pleasure to have you online. Look, folks, it's been great. I hope you've learned something from this dialogue. I hope something has sparked your mind to think and just to understand marijuana is something that's a part of our community, and we need to discuss it, especially in the church. There are people that may be dealing with this, and we don't know it. And so people, those of us that are Christians, people need to come to us and be able to talk to us about their strongholds without us demonizing it and pushing them away. Remember, Christ's ministry is a ministry of love, and love draws. Love does not push away. Folks, you can find more about us. We are members, Pastor Gambrell and I, Deacon Jackson, of the Powerhouse of Love Christian Bible Church in Missouri City. You can find out a whole lot more about our ministry at www.powerhouseoflove.org. That's it for Crucial Dialogue for this week. Join us next Monday at the same crucial time on the same crucial channel. You all be blessed, and I hope to see you next time for more Crucial Dialogue. That's it, folks. Have a good day.
This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Make sure you never miss a show by joining us on Mondays at 6 p.m. by going to our website, powerhouseoflove.org, our YouTube and Facebook channel, or the Google and Apple Podcasts. Hope you tune in next time.